the marriage of data and intuition. You think about data as objective truth. Absolutely, coaches need to use their intuition to go through. Absolutely. How they validate that gut feel is through objectivity, is through data. One does not work without the other. Humans grow away from narcissism, right? And what happens is when people get these barriers and blocks in their life, either personally, professionally, and in our case, coaches professionally, well, how do we facilitate removing those blocks? You've got control over four things: what you say, what you think, what you do, and what you feel. Right? Finding your leading edge is operating just past that boundary of being uncomfortable psychologically. There is no failure, only feedback. The language I use to myself and the language I communicate to my team, to my management team. What does that mean?
Welcome to Coaching Culture, the podcast about cultivating culture and leadership. I've been loving this side of the game for bloody ages.
Today's guest is John Dams. John is a performance strategist for Kitman Labs and developmental coach, helping people find their leading edge. Prior to this, he was in professional sport, head of athletic performance with the Waratahs, head of performance for Harlequins in the UK, and with the Leicester Tigers. Now, I've been chatting to John weekly about performance and his insight around leadership and how to break down and unlock your potential is awesome. John Dams, welcome to the Coaching Culture podcast.
Thanks, Ben. Happy to be here. Happy to spend some time in heartbeats with you.
Oh, time and heartbeats. How good is that statement? Love it, mate. Now, we're talking today, man, around not only culture, but also the performance. Tell us a little bit about how you got into this industry in the first place. Where'd you start?
So I was I guess back in the day, between the late 90s, early 2000s, all these early year fitness trainer. Right? I wasn't a strength coach. I wasn't a strength and conditioning coach. I was a fitness trainer.
Yeah.
Like the rules were different back then. I'm talking 1998. And my first job was with the Otago Sevenston under a coach named Murray Ralston.
I do remember Rolly.
And I remember him, just fresh out of university saying, look, can you give me a job? I said, yeah, of course. I'm like, cool, great. What are you going to pay me? He's like, nothing. Right. Okay. Just prove your worth. We'll give you some experience. Great. The cool thing about it, I ended up working with that team, training them and playing and training at the same time. I actually ended up representing that team at the National Sevens whilst doing a job as a trainer.
Mate, so you would have been taking shortcuts all over the show. You were saying, right, boys, get on the line, and you would have just been there with us.
No, but it was a great lesson in terms of like developing relationships with the people you work with. If you're doing the work, you have a different relationship. You understand what's going on in the back end, what it takes to put a team together.
If you're there doing the work.
Yeah, and even from the management side, and I found this as I moved to my next role. Like I moved from Dunedin to Wellington to get into professional sport. I worked as a personal trainer for a long time. My first job in Wellington was with the Wellington development team for the Rats, and the head coach of them was a guy named Chris Boyd.
They were called the Rats.
They're the Rats because you just scrape and fight for anything. Right, resources, jerseys, gear, food, and I was employed as a fitness trainer / assistant manager. Probably one of the best things that it did, because what it allowed me to do is get to understand all the different roles within sport.
Yeah.
So, who's putting the kit away? Who's washing the kit? Who's to be on time? Who's getting all the gear to the airport? Who's getting keys to the players for their rooms, So I was assistant manager / fitness trainer. And with the job, I wanted a full-time job with the Waratahs rugby. And those jobs were coveted. There's 5 super franchises, and I think you were at Wellington at the time.
Yeah.
And so 5 jobs. And like the strength and conditioning industry wasn't really an industry those days. You had a few key people in jobs who had specialised at university, but there wasn't a real pathway to do that. So you had to find your own pathway.
Because professional rugby hadn't been around particularly either, right?
Yeah, we're old. So I hadn't been around long. I've been around 3 or 4 years. So, and this was probably in the 2000s. So I'd been around 4 years. So the roles and performance was maturing at the same time. So the guy who's in charge of the Hurricanes at the time is a guy named Brand Lowe, the All Blacks, and into sailing and did some amazing things. And he's working in kind of corporate performance at the moment. But what that allowed me to do is get into the academy side. I came on as an academy fitness coach or academy strength and conditioning coach, and I was lucky enough to work with some real talent there. Like looking back, it was Jimmy Gopperth, Tony Ellis, and Mia Tilada. All those guys are coming through. And again, I was young, and the relationships I formed them were really important. And I was lucky enough to get an opportunity to come out of Europe, and I was kind of single at the time. I was married, and it was the right job offers here. Let's go. Let's move. I had a job offer from Leicester Tigers as a assistant strength coach. And it was like, right, when can you move? I'm like, when do you want me? A couple of weeks. Moved my life from New Zealand to the UK like that. And what I did is I walked into a team. If you remember 2003, England won the World Cup. And a large portion of that team were from Leicester.
That's an interesting environment to be going into, right?
Right.
And very different from the Southern Hemisphere rugby.
Very different. There's some crazy stories. Talking about culture and like the culture of that place, and you've been there, you've been part of it. It's so strong. It's so ingrained in how you train, how you turn up, what you do. And coming from New Zealand, it's very, very different to the way we operate and what we did. So it's a massive learning curve. And I was very young. I was 26, 27. And I walked into a changing room of Martin Johnson, Neil Babb, Lewis Moody, Julian White, Graham Roundtree. All these guys are now coaches and legends in their own right.
Isn't it funny? Because when you come as a player, you find that transition hard. But that's even harder, right, to then be instructing people how to stay fit and stay strong when they've been doing it for 25 years.
Yeah, and like the way they prepped, the way they trained, the way they did things was very, very different.
What was the difference?
I'll give an example. Like, let's talk about your role as a fitness trainer, coach on a game day is you make sure that the players on the side of the pitch, the bench is ready to go on. Right? And typically you'd be warming up, playing ball skills, doing games, getting them sharp, ready to go on the field. I remember one of my first warm-ups on the sideline at Leicester. There was rules around which end you had to go to. And I was like, right, boys, get a ball, let's play a bit of 2-on-2, 2-on-3 touch. And Graham Roundtree was a legend of the game. Still is a legend.
Yep, he is.
He turned around and literally looked at me and went, touch. I was like, okay, let's just do some running in a stretch. And like the thought of using a ball in a warm-up was just like so foreign at that time. But, that was just a kind of, their mindset was, we're here to play rugby. We're going to warm up. We're focusing on the game. I didn't know what's going on. So the focus is very, very different, right? So from that, like I was a strength coach. I was in charge of rehab. So I'd kind of gone from a fitness trainer to a strength coach, and I was working with the players returning to injury. So I learned the skills around, that one-on-one dealing with players at a really kind of traumatic time in their career, which is people have picked up long-term injuries. So I remember Lewis Mooney coming off a foot injury from the World Cup, and he was out for a long period of time. And like desperate to get back playing. And those relationships you build in those moments become really important. But I also, like, the guy who brought me over there, and I still got so much time from him as a person, in terms of what he did to help me, was Darren Crickop, the guy who brought me over.
Oh, yeah.
Short nose, remember Crickop?
I do. Went to Bath, didn't he?
Yeah, no, he didn't. No, you probably didn't. Danny.
Dumb thing about Danny.
Gree may have left before we got there. But Gree, his delivery, how he coached was very, very different to what I was used to. It was, I say, you do.
Yeah.
I'm the boss. You do this. You listen. I say you do. And that's not how I coached. But they responded. They responded in a certain way. All right. And again, what you're doing is I was learning a different way to coach, different way to adapt. And, you're in an environment where you've come from New Zealand where you're one person. You're leading yourself in this environment where all of a sudden there's 2 or 3 different strength coaches. You're dealing with different people. And probably a year later, the club employed a guy named Craig White, who had a huge amount of success and experience with Wasps in Ireland, and did anything but not do some with Wales. He's an amazing coach. And what he did, he brought in an environment where he created a shared meaning and understanding as a coach. And this comes from someone who, if you're in a role in New Zealand, you're protecting that job. There weren't many of them. Right, I'm here. You're a bit of an island, a little bit, right? Because people wanted your job because there weren't many of them. And step into a space where someone was really comfortable in terms of how they approached what they did. And he created this team around them.
You mean team around the fitness?
Yeah, the fitness teams. Yeah, so from the academy coaches, the assistant coaches, the rehab coaches to him as like the head of performance, head of strength and conditioning, creating an understanding. Well, this is how we're going to prepare this team. And I remember thinking, this is very different, but I like it. Because what he did, he listened. John, what do you think? Oh, I think this. Okay, it's a good idea. So what I really have learned is a really key part of being a strong leader is listening. Having an understanding of what you want. I mean, ultimately it's his job, his role, right? But when someone listens to you, really understands, goes a long way to felt being heard. I was like, right, I'm in.
Yeah.
What do you want, boss? I'm in. And I took that away from how I shaped my teams after that.
That's awesome. So he left a lasting impact on you as a
massive,
as a young.
I remember it vividly. Took us all out onto Oval Park. If you've ever been to Oval Park, wasn't sunny very often, and took us out into Oval Park. We sat down on the grass and we talked about, okay, this is what we're gonna do.
Isn't it funny when you think about like invisible skills which great coaches have, and the ability to listen is almost the epitome of an invisible skill, right? Because you don't hear anything about it. It's just So that's such a cool trait, isn't it? Would you say it's right up there with one of the most important traits of a leader?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And the more I've kind of grown in the space, as part of forms empathy, which is a huge part of emotional intelligence and what you learn to listen and take the perspective of another person. Right. Empathy becomes such an important piece as a coach. Right. Truly listen to someone. Okay, man, I feel you. I know where you're coming from. And as someone who's been on the other side of that, it's such a powerful piece. When you talk about emotional intelligence of a coach, I think that's such an important piece about being a strong leader, is having a high level of emotional intelligence, and starts with being able to take the perspective of the person you're talking to. And key skill is listening.
Yeah. What's the definition of emotional intelligence? What does that look like?
Emotional intelligence, understanding yourself. How do you do you? What are your beliefs? What are your values? What do you hold on to? As soon as you understand that, you can start to realize, well, maybe I do things different than other people. Okay, well, maybe they do something different. Okay, well, then there's empathy. How can I stand in your shoes and understand what you're going through? And empathy sometimes for coaches, if it's not intentional, can be very natural, because the people we interact with have the same beliefs and same values. It's when you come up with a group, you don't share the same beliefs and values, where you might go, oh, this group's different. And where empathy becomes really important, listening becomes really important. I'll give you a couple of examples.
Yeah.
Before I started my journey through self-development into a developmental coach in the UK and in Australia, I struggled with a couple of people within the organization I was working with. I didn't understand them. I didn't understand why they're behaving the way they were, which wasn't normal to the rest of the group. The rest of the group were pretty good. And I'm like, I don't get that guy. I found myself getting frustrated. I didn't step into his shoes.
Well, if you had of, what do you reckon you would have seen?
I would have what I've seen, and I reflect on this a lot.
Yeah, right.
Like, if I had the skills I had then or now, then I would have responded different. I would have asked different questions. I would have listened to him, inquired into his behaviour. Same here, same in Australia, where the culture from the UK to Australia is completely different. the way they work, the way they approach the game. A lot of it is around finding joy and meaning in what they do day to day.
Do you think it's not just the game, but also wider life too?
Yeah,
Different cultures just value different way of doing things, right?
they do. Absolutely. So the cultures are different, and they're joined by like shared meaning of the game, right? Well, that's why typically players moving to like from Australia to the UK or UK to Australia find shared understanding because it's the game, right?
Yeah, that's the connector, right?
It's the shared understanding of we're here to play rugby. But like once I understood that, once I really got like to understand myself, it was like an aha moment. I'm like, shit, John.
What was the reason for it? Like, was there actually an aha moment where you just went, bang, I need to start looking at myself a bit better?
We're getting into like the fundamentals of like mental skills and coaching, which has been a huge part of my growth in the past 10 years. But it was, what are the things that you can control as a human, as a coach, right? And once I kind of understood that, I'm like, well, I can't control what this person thinks, does, feels, says. I can inquire into, I can seek to understand where it's coming from. I can't control that. The 4 things that you can control, and this has stayed with me for a long time. You got control over 4 things: what you say, what you think, what you do, and what you feel. They're your 4 things that you can control as a human.
Yeah. Say, think, do, feel.
Yeah. So I can't control what you feel. But what I can do is seek to understand why you're feeling that way and have empathy for that. So how that would have showed up and how I delivered, how I coach is completely different.
So are those things the things that you can't control those things of others, but you can control them in yourself?
Absolutely. So make me hate you. Make me say something. You can't do that. You can potentially influence the way someone feels. You can influence the way someone acts, potentially.
Yeah.
But you can't control that. Once you understand that, it's such a powerful
influence over
anyone else.
You can influence, but you can't control.
You can potentially influence. If you can't, let it go.
Yeah. How do you, when do you let that go? That say you've got that person in your workspace that frustrates you. You want to influence them to change, or you want to tell them to change.
The frustration is the belief that you can. Right. My frustration has always been, why I need to change the way this person's behaving. I need to, I can't do that. The more you realize, okay, what can I do? Can I influence in the way? Right. What I can do is change the way I respond to that. The way I feel about that. That's my responsibility. How I turn up every day.
So you've got someone in your environment that's, say, let's take a rugby context where you've got a player that's just can't be asked doing the gym, right? And it's just taking us out and bringing others down. What are you suggesting? It's to get to the bottom of that, or?
Yeah, well, what's the understanding? What's inquire into why that may be the case? He may not see the benefit of that. Right?
Yeah.
And your job is to be able to showcase that. But to understand, first of all, seek to understand. Step into their shoes, ask them questions, listen to what he has to say.
Seek to understand first. That's the guiding principle of this kind of underlying empathy, isn't it? Because if you understand someone's background or the rationale behind stuff, that's when it explodes, right?
And there's the growth too, is about understanding others. Like, how do people do them? How do you do you? You know, you do yourself. That's the first step.
Not always.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's what self-development and self-growth is about. Like, the more you understand, and that's what coaching is about. The skills learning coaching is understanding how people do themselves. How does it play out through the language they use, the behavior they execute?
Understanding how people do themselves.
Yeah, like the way listening to the words people use. Words are important. The words you use, the words, it tells a little bit about how people are potentially thinking, feeling.
What sort of words would you give as an example around that sort of stuff?
For example, this is a really basic example used to demonstrate this point a lot. But when you talk about big picture thinking, you talk about detail. When people use words like the big picture, or, you can't see the wood for the trees, or, they are dealing in that they're talking in a certain way, which potentially say they see the world in a certain way. And the more you understand that, the more you can understand how this person is doing. What you do is you can then match, understand, and talk the same language. And all of a sudden you have rapport, you have communication, line of communication is.
So you're matching the talking style and then mirroring it back to them.
Yeah, so what we're talking about is the fundamentals of rapport. So how do you build rapport?
Fundamentals of rapport.
Yeah, like what are the key aspects of building a relationship? Right.
What are those? What are some?
Well, first of all, like you can match behavior, you can match language. So what you're looking for is a shared understanding of values. If I'm talking and behaving and posture is different, there's typically no rapport there. And the fundamentals of coaching, developmental coaching, is the priority first is building rapport. Without rapport, there's no flow of communication.
Ooh.
Right? And how you do that is through framing, communicating how you're going to communicate. Right?
Yeah.
Matching language, asking questions, listening, actively listening. And these are skills.
They are.
The skills. It's the skills which some people have, some people don't. And what I guess the growth I've had the last probably 4 or 5 years now is just to teach people those skills.
How have you learned that to teach it yourself?
First of all, was like the fundamentals of developmental coaching is based in NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, which helps facilitate how you ask questions, how people think, how people feel. And then talks about, as a developmental coach, humans grow up, wake up at different speeds and different levels. Essentially, humans grow away from narcissism, right? And what happens is when people get these barriers and blocks in their life, either personally, professionally, and in our case, coaches professionally, well, how do we facilitate removing those blocks? Right.
Yeah. The block is to
being successful.
Oh.
So our jobs as coaches isn't to give advice. It's to facilitate, because every person has the answers to their own success. You know all the answers. All we do as a developmental coach is shine a light and facilitate you finding those answers. We don't tell you. That's the skill of listening, reflecting, feeding back. So what we're finding is, I guess, young coaches, if you want to facilitate change in your athletes, you need the skills to be able to do that. And we believe that's the gap.
Coaches aren't equipped to
some
draw.
are.
Well,
some are, but like at the highest level, like the ability to listen, understand what's coming through, like facilitate true change in young athletes can be a skill. Typically, these are done by sports psychologists.
Do you think that's the shift that coaches need to make going forward? Or that's the way modern coaching needs to evolve to?
Well, who's the most important person? Who's the most influential person? I'd say.
Yeah, coach.
Head coach.
Yeah.
So head coach or assistant coach or head of that department needs to have the skills to facilitate that. And this is what work we're doing now is geared towards.
Is helping head coaches develop these skills to actually better influence the people they're leading.
Anyone who's working in high performance, who is working with ambitious young men, giving them the skills to facilitate true change. By giving them the skills to develop, giving them the mental skills to develop the athletes they're working with, right?
Yeah. Giving coaches the skills to develop true change in their players.
Yeah. Well, some do it inherently. You think about some are good listeners, and we talked about this before about teachers becoming good coaches, because sometimes teachers can listen, they're dealt with, and know how to communicate. Language becomes so important. The language you use, how you frame an idea, the language you use in that moment. What are you doing? How are you preparing that? How are you building rapport? How are you developing meaning? Why is meaning important? All these things which aren't part of a coach curriculum sometimes. Coaches come out of being players, they learn from what they've learned. What we believe is an absolute niche. And as someone who's been part of that growth,
Yeah.
I know there was.
That's huge, right?
Yeah. Like,
And then I know it's probably the same in all sports, but like rugby particularly, where it's such a emotional sport too, right? It's not just a shooting where you just hit a target over and over again. It's a people business. Like there's all sorts of different
the
people.
highs and lows of like winning and losing week in, week out. Like in the European game, there's 36 plus games a year. I remember, being involved in a number of finals kind of weekends. You do the schedule one. You got to week 48 of the season. I'm like, this is a long season.
I remember those ones.
Right, you're up and down, and like having the skills to be able to adapt to that. Like having the skills, and we've spoken about leading edge of performance, right? What does that mean?
What does that mean?
Well, it's the growth around being uncomfortable. It's finding your leading edge is operating just past that boundary of being uncomfortable psychologically, right? Just being better, right? Well,
What does that? What does that sort of feeling feel like? Like being uncomfortable psychologically? Like is that stress or just frustration?
It's the balance between like meaning and action. Right, you need to have a strong meaning towards where you're going, and it's how you see failure. Like, what's your perspective of what failure means? Like, think about if you have a perspective of failure, which is there is no failure, only feedback. Imagine if that was the mindset you had, and some coaches do that. The good ones, the great ones, really do.
Yep.
There is no failure, only feedback. So, what is this telling me? The language I use to myself, and the language I could communicate to my team, to my management team. What does that mean?
And I guess if that's your underlying belief, there's no failure, only feedback. That's very different, isn't it? Like the way you approach it from then on is very different to someone who's outcome orientated, right?
So but understanding and setting appropriate meaning, setting appropriate objectives becomes a really important piece. So what's the larger goal? What's the larger meaning? Why are we doing this? That shapes your perspective of failure. So as a coach, if you're not setting the higher meaning right, if you're not facilitating that meaning effectively, your view of failure is going to be very narrow. Right.
No failure, only feedback. Setting that higher meaning right at the very start too, right? So when you first, well, not even come into a team, even every season, does it equate to every training, every game, the start of everything, the way you set the meanings?
I think like the shared meaning is one you can always talk to specifically. Why are we here? And I think it's important that it's done as a group. It's not my meaning enforced on you, Ben. It's like, okay, what do we want as a team? And I think as a coach, it's your job to facilitate that. What's going to drive these players towards what's important to them? How do they want to play? How do they want to behave? What kind of beliefs and values do they have that they want to bring into their culture? They want to enculturate the team in. Turning up on time, working hard, being respectful. These are shared beliefs and values which form your culture. It starts from why.
Does start with why, eh?
Yeah, why is it important?
It was actually, I had an awesome recollection, just when you say why, I was with the Canadian ladies, and one of the girls asked me, I said, all right, ladies, warm up with this drill. And the lady said, why? And I was like, because it's a warm-up drill. She's like, but why are we doing it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I couldn't answer at the time.
Yeah.
I was just, and it turned out it was just a drill that I'd done.
Yep.
And I was just repeating, regurgitating stuff from the past.
Yeah. So now you're talking about the meaning action paradigm.
Oh,
well, we've talked about this briefly around the theory of flow.
Yes, I love the flow aspect.
Yeah, where the two axes are meaning and action or challenge. And too much doing without meaning, you just explained it there. You boredom and apathy. Do this task, run this drill. Okay, why am I doing this? There is action or challenge without meaning. On the other side, it's the other way around. It's we're gonna win this championship. We're gonna win. That's the meaning. Well, we're gonna train and actually develop the skills to do that. And what you get is frustration. And sometimes players out and coaches, when they train, is their frustration, their meaning is they want to win so much. Like that, the way they train is more about them than the athletes sometimes. Attention.
And so the flow state. So if
There's a
you
balance of meaning and action. The higher the meaning, the higher the skill set.
require.
Yeah, it's a balance, right?
So flow works in the middle, meaning you can't be super high in meaning without.
Yeah, think about a time where work's been effortless. Like training's been effortless. You felt like you are either applying yourself physically, mentally, and you're in the zone, right? That is the balance of this is great work, and I've got the skills to do that. Right? And I think it's a really important piece you can break into. Well, how do I frame that meaning in a micro level every day and a macro level at the start of the season? How do I find meaning daily? And that comes with how you communicate as a coach. How am I framing this session? What am I referring to?
Yeah.
Okay, today, girls, this warm up we're doing is this. This is the reason why we do this is because if we don't prepare, we break down. We break down, we can't do X. So if you frame the meaning in that meeting, is it, and framing, is it okay with you girls? Yep. Right. All of a sudden you've got shared meaning, why it's important, and you run a training session. Right? And how you frame becomes a really important skill as a coach. And this is one skill which can be a game changer.
How often would you frame something, do you reckon? Like, do you frame everything? Do you try and put in the rationale, the meaning behind everything you're doing? Like, we're changing to this drill now, this is why, right? And then after that, we'll go to this one, and that's why.
I think
that level, is it too micro?
I think if you have, again, this in your training structure, I think if you've got the training overview, and you've gone through, this is the reason why we're training today, you've created enough meaning for them to have a little bit of trust in order to move from drill to drill. How you frame around asking questions around why we're doing this could be, if you have any questions around why we're doing these drills, let's have them at the end, just keep real clarity. So then you're not going to have that breakdown of doing your training, right? But how you deliver that and how you communicate becomes such an important piece. The stronger that meaning, the stronger it's going to be.
And with that meaning, it's got to be, well, you can't just say the trite sort of cliche stuff, right? You've actually got to have meaning, which is massive, you're into it yourself, and it's also got to be the team's into it because of whatever, right?
Well, this is who's developed that meaning. I've seen it done really well, and I've seen it done poorly.
Yes.
And the poor examples are, team, this is who we are. Right?
Yep.
Okay? Yep. Potential. Yeah. It's the team before us. Before them. This is how we operate. Right? Okay. Every year the group's different. Think about you as a player, how you evolved as a player.
Yeah.
Through, what you thought was important. Even myself as a coach, like what I found was important. It was different as I developed, right? So being able to change and adapt, players get older, have families, meaning changes. Why are they doing this? What's important? Sometimes it transcends just winning.
It's fascinating, isn't it? That they almost search for meaning, right? You got to actually have a hunt around and try and find it, right?
Yeah.
Man's search for meaning.
Yeah, well, that's Abraham Maslow, right? He was on to something.
Righto, mate. Well, mate, how do you, mate? There's performance parts which are across cultures, but is there anything which is negative stuff which aren't across all cultures? Like,
I think, like things that transcend cultures are like meaning, values, belief. I think that every team does have a shared value system. They do, typically have that. What different is how they execute that. And that's the cultural piece. Think about the different cultures and experiences you've had with teams. Well, the meaning is the same. They want to win. They practice the same way, but how they go about it is completely different. And it's because the makeup of the team is different. The way the coach chooses to lead us different.
It's fascinating. Like actually, now the
Yeah.
the same execution is different. Like values are pretty consistent across the board, right?
Yeah.
Like they are the same, but and the meaning's largely the same too. But how
meaning, identity, belonging are universal. Right. Meaning, identity, belonging, universal. What's different with teams is the cultural piece. Think about the culture under Fijian and Drua compared to Otago Islanders. Yeah.
And that's the execution piece, right? Like, and as a leader and coach, you've got to be empathetic enough to understand what's here in front of you to deal with that. And even yourself too, and about your relationship with this environment too.
Yeah.
Have you seen people get it wrong? Got any examples of that?
Oh, I'll give an example. The culture at Leicester, as I say you do.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to work hard. You listen to me. I'm your leader. Strongly listed, which is John Morris, Paddy Howard. Oh, these are guys who've been in the environment. We say you do. Richard Cockcroft. You know Richard, he is. I say you do. Totally good.
Yeah.
Although he's adapted and changed, and he's a different type of coach he was. Right. It's taking the same approach into a different environment. Like taking that approach to like you had at Leicester and taking it to Harlequins wouldn't have worked. The younger kids, the culture wasn't established. And if you took that in the early days, we did, and it doesn't work. Right? So how you communicate what you do is a little bit different. So the meaning, the identity and belonging to that environment was different. The cultural piece of how we communicated, different. And they couldn't be two different organizations, right? Like one was graft, soul of the earth. The others were supremely talented, play a high, fast tempo game, love to look good, love to feel good.
When you talk to people that you mentor and coach yourself, and how do you address that with them around? How do you get them to look inwards at themselves and go, I need to make some shifts here?
Look, not everyone's ready for coaching. Not everyone is ready to make that change. And that's a key point is like, sometimes people aren't ready to inquire into, why do I think this way? Because sometimes it's not comfortable. Looking internally sometimes can be very difficult. Some people aren't ready for it.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Well, I remember when we first chatted around some of that stuff, and I was very resistant to some of the stuff and had to go away and actually think about that and go,
reflect.
Why do I get defensive around that? Like, what are my blockers here when you're raising that? And you were good at pushing the buttons on that. Like, just like, what's the issue with that? Like, why is that an issue? Why is that a problem? Yeah. And then you're like, don't know.
I don't have the answers. You've got the answers.
Yeah.
Right.
So one of the ones I think it's a personal one is around, like, I'm not a big data guy. Yeah. And you were challenging me around, why don't you use the data? And I was like, I'd like to trust my gut. And then you were making references around, wouldn't a good set of data help your gut make even better decisions than it's currently making, to something to that effect?
Yeah, like the use of data in sport. I work in data. Like the company I work for, Kitman Labs, we are at the forefront of understanding and helping teams make impactful decisions around how they use their data. Yeah. Like part of my role as a strategist is help teams facilitate how to use data effectively. And I think part of the coaching journey, I think I bring to that is it's a marriage, right? The marriage of data and intuition. You think about data as objective truth. Like absolutely coaches need to use their intuition and gut feel. Absolutely. How they validate that gut feel is through objectivity, is through data. One does not work without the other. And a strong data presence, a strong data landscape, clear processes, clear understanding, with a really strong intuition, the ability to ask really insightful questions of that data, you got such a powerful coach, powerful environment to be in.
Yeah, I guess people can have the other way too, where they might be a super heavy data guy. Yeah. And then
can't ask the right questions. Can't ask questions. Have no idea how to be intuitive. Okay, what do we think about this? And think about the other way where it's all about intuition. Okay, well, great. Sometimes, and a lot of coaches work that way. And I'm not saying it's wrong because coaches are highly successful, but the opportunity for growth is if your intuition may not be off, you've got false flags, you've got false paths you go down. Where the data validates your questions. Okay, I think this, and the key in what we're doing is what we do at the company, I think really, really well, is we help teams answer those questions really quickly. If you think about the scientific principle, you have an idea, hypothesis. You collect data. You analyze that data. You make a decision. Does it validate your hypothesis? Do you iterate? Do it again? Or do you ask another question? So that whole principle of why you gather information, why you ask questions of your information, used to take a long time. How you manage that process, how you can quickly iterate on that, like you're asking questions and answering them at a rate where you start to, I guess, move past other groups who aren't moving as quick.
It's you've just sparked something in me there when you think we were talking about data then, and asking questions to work out the hypothesis, check out all that stuff, and that's what scientists do, right?
Yes, it is.
But essentially, in teams, coaches also got to ask those sort of questions around like what we talked about before about the people, about what that empathy level. How do you get through to people? You've got to ask good questions of people and practice that side of things, right? To validate assumptions and things like, why is this guy acting like this?
Yeah.
Well, let's ask him these series of questions and see where that goes.
And the more you know about how people and the way you understand people, it's a big business now. Like self-development. First, when you understand yourself, you can understand the different flavors of personality, different flavors of ego. And it's been involved in sport for a long time, personality profiling. But it goes beyond that a little bit. They can help you, like, understand where, if you're using like an Enneagram, is he in type 9, is he type 1?
Yeah.
Or if you're using like disc, what color is he?
Yeah.
You've probably been through it before where, you're in pretty good type yellow. You'd be definitely yellow.
What's a yellow?
More of like a enthusiast, lots of options, from the Enneagram perspective.
Yep.
I think.
Yeah, I think it would sound right.
Type 7.
Yep.
But like, once you understand that, you can start to understand, okay, well, how can I communicate better with this person? If I've got a bunch of these same type of people, it's kind of like almost like the talent character paradigm. You understand where people are, and that's objective information you can then use to make a decision how you communicate with your team. Okay, what do I know? Well, I know I've got a bunch of, using Enneagram talk here, I've got a bunch of 8s and 9s. So I've got a bunch of people who challenge authority. I've got a bunch of people who keep the team together. Right, okay, what do I need? We need some helpers. We need some type 2s potentially. I don't know. The more you get to understand the group you have, the more you can make decisions on how you communicate, how you lead them. Without it, you're making assumptions, and they should all understand that.
No.
Well, they think,
yeah,
potentially think differently.
Well, this is that scientist analogy. You're the scientist in a social context, isn't it? Trying to work things out.
Yeah, it's the same question. It's just like, it's serve humanity for a long time.
Yeah, it was like you can just equate that to like being a social scientist on a date.
Yeah.
And the questions you're asking over dinner is you're formulating opinion, right? So you're factoring in all the stuff, whether you want to date this person or marry this person or what else, all that stuff. So it's the same sort of principle as that, isn't it? Like,
think about the teams that don't have access to sports psychologists. Think about the teams who maybe don't have the budgets to do that. Imagine if all the coaches in those positions had the skills to be able to access, develop, coach their players. I believe that's such a powerful piece as a coach, one, but how you can facilitate growth and true performance in us.
And this stuff is actually good for life too, right? Like it's whilst coaching, you're trying to get better at the stuff for that purpose. All the stuff you'd be learning in that environment equates to your own home life and family life.
Yeah, well, the first stage of that is understanding yourself. The better you understand yourself, the simpler it is. Then we understand where you're going back to your responsibilities. Like how can I understand? Well, how do I turn up in this environment? What kind of like in the situation where like feelings are a flag. Feelings in your state is a flag of understanding, well, what's running at that moment? Why am I feeling that way? Okay. So where inquiry comes in. This is where we've spoken about the power of journaling
Oh,
as
yeah.
a coach.
What's the power of that? Yeah, tell me with the journaling.
Let's think about business and sport. And Jay, who's a mentor, partner, well, he's been involved in business for a long time, coaching CEOs, executives. And part of that is developing their abilities as leaders. And now taking that to professional sport. But what that enables people to do is to be able to talk about that. So as soon as it comes out, it's and written down or recorded, you've got a different perspective of what you're thinking and feeling. This is what journaling does. You write down your thoughts, you write down your feelings, you write down just some observations. You are no longer subject to those. You can take a different perspective and be objective.
Because you're looking at it from a different angle.
It's out. It's an objective piece of information. You're not subject to those emotions. You can look at it and go, okay, why did I feel that way? I felt that way because Ben didn't appreciate my skill. Okay, well, why did he think that? Okay, well, he may just want the best for the team. Oh, okay, I can see that now. So it just gives you a different way to.
I heard you were talking a while back about like that camera angle. It's like perspectives and how that equates. Do you want to elaborate on how that, I think you had a playground analogy where security cameras.
Yeah. It's a good, so if you think about, we talked about developmental coaching and human development. So essentially as humans, we develop away from narcissism. Narcissism is essentially about only thinking about yourself. So it's like everyone has to develop. Every human doesn't escape it. Some develop faster than others. Some grow up, wake up faster than others, and some get stuck. And typically, the more perspectives you can take, the further you're up that ladder. It's where, and we can talk about this for a long time, but like, first person perspective is me.
Yeah.
I think about myself. It's looking out through my eyes. If I can only take my perspective, all I can think about is myself. Okay, second person perspective. This comes from a theory called integral theory by a developmental psychologist called Kitman Labs. First person perspective is all the internal, right? Second is the second person perspective, which is me and you. Right? It's the we. Okay, it's us. Right. I can see you, you can see me. The third, which is an objective perspective, is looking at me and you having a conversation. That's the third. It's a very objective view. Because I'm looking at two people having a conversation. It's the ability to be able to look at something without being subject to it.
Yep.
Fourth perspective, if you were in a playground and we were talking, you could see the person looking at us, but you're a helicopter view, a bird's eye view looking down. And it's a fourth person perspective. Right, so it's the ability to take a systems view of an environment. For example, how does this team look from a support perspective? Who's running the medical? Who's doing the performance? Who's looking after careers? You can take a different perspective on things. And once you get past kind of those perspectives, you're into what they call second tier consciousness, second tier learning, which is a further conversation. But typically, as you grow, you develop those perspectives in life. So what coaching does is help people facilitate growth through those perspectives when people are stuck. Because sometimes you can only hold, it's about this group. You're subject to, it's the cultural piece of you're either with us or without us. You're either in our group or out of our group. Right? You're either Catholic or Muslim. Right? That's a perspective stuck at that lower level, right?
Because it's I or
it's
you and me.
It's
first or second level.
Yeah. When you look at that, you can see, if you take a third person perspective, you can see the benefit of both.
So that's kind of where journaling, circling back to that, is like when you essentially write your feelings or your thoughts down on a piece of paper. It's taking it from that internal first person.
Yeah.
It's putting it down on a piece of paper, and now you're looking at it.
And you take a third person view.
And you're taking a third person
view.
Oh, I reckon that's powerful. I don't think I've ever heard that explained as well as that. Like, I've always heard journaling is good and it feels good and you do it, but then it makes a lot of sense. You write it down, you're now looking at that objectively rather than those thoughts spinning around in your head, just emotionally and bouncing all over the show and going down into horrible downward spirals.
It works the same way as talking. It's like we're talking to people. It's just very cathartic. Like people, having a conversation with someone becomes such an important piece because you can talk what you're experiencing. Right? If you've got the right environment, it becomes such a powerful tool in order to be able to understand someone, support someone, move someone from point A to point B. Someone who is not fulfilling the potential to someone who is fulfilling the potential. Right?
Yeah. And this is gold stuff for the way coaching is going. So this is where modern coaching is now. The science backs of this sort of stuff up, right? The stuff you're saying is not just objective stuff.
Yeah.
It's not just intuitive. It's not intuition. There's data through the roof on this sort of stuff, right?
Yeah. Like, I think successful coaches have found a way or have been taught, like this stuff is not new, that coaches who understand how to communicate effectively, how to deliver a message effectively. Like, you had Joe on a couple of weeks ago and we spoke about words matter and how you deliver a message, right? And him as a previous English teacher, I thought it was really powerful because the words he chose, the words he used and how he delivered a message were so important. I'm like, absolutely. That's a skill that some people don't always have. How to build a really coherent frame to what you want. It's a skill. And as an English teacher, he's well into it.
Well, I think he was a lovely one. That's Joe Schmidt was talking about make words sticky.
Yeah.
And I just love that phrase in itself. Like when you hear it, make them stick, make them sticky. So everything you say, it's got to be sticking to people's mind.
Yeah.
And the way you do that is specific. Like, and he talked from his context, alliteration, the same letter.
Yeah.
Body ball is what he called a phrase, and angles and arcs.
Yeah.
And then he said also use rhyming because it sticks in people's minds more. And then all the detail comes under that.
Yep.
But you can just go bang. An alliterative sentence just lands. And I was watching our players when he was coaching them on various things, and he just had these phrases that were catchy and sticky, and it just created quick, rapid fire meaning, bang, straight off the
There
head.
you go, rapid meaning. So they can understand and then understand where he's coming from. Can understand his perspective quickly. Using words, right?
Yeah.
And it sounds really simple, right? Words, elicit meaning, of course, but how they elicit meaning, how you structure that frame, how you structure that conversation becomes really important.
And these are skills you practice, right? That's
absolutely.
And that's where having someone looking over your shoulder and mentoring can actually go, did you pick up on that? Did you notice you were doing this?
Like, as part of learning the skill, we sat in threes, like for 2 days. I'm coaching you, son, as observer. Okay. How do you frame? What language are you using? Okay. Here's your feedback. This is what I heard. Okay, there's a good point, like giving feedback. Like, what is feedback? How to give it effectively as a coach. These are skills, right? Like, some people do and don't understand. Feedback is typically purely objective, right? An opinion, there's a subjective for you, but you'd offer an opinion. You have an opinion on something, but feedback typically is purely objective. Forgot what was going on with that, but like how you communicate with people, how you frame a conversation becomes really important. There's practice. Yeah, talking about practice. Practice makes perfect. So how you learn to build a frame, getting instant feedback. Okay, you missed that. All right, do it again.
Yeah.
Right. So within our own company, Kitman Labs, we've been doing some work with managers, people who are in charge of high performing units around this. How are you framing your meetings? How are you framing your conversation? How can we make you as a manager, leader, effective? First of all, how do you do you? How do you understand the people you're dealing with?
So wait on. So you've got a couple of frameworks for framing. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, what are you talking?
Well, what's the outcome? What's the goal? What do you want? What's the outcome of this conversation? What's the purpose? What's the outcome? What's the purpose? What are you going to talk about? What's the outcome? There's different ways to frame, and internally we use what we call PAO. P-A-O. Purpose, agenda, outcome. It's typically a frame is a contract we have with each other about how we're going to communicate. You think about a contract. If I give you a contract from a car, you don't sign that contract. Is it valid?
No, it's not.
No. So to sign the contract, you need confirmation. Ben, today we're going to talk about your performance, and then we're going to talk about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without confirmation, we haven't got permission to talk about that. So Ben, we're going to talk about your performance. Is that okay? Yes. Contract signed. Right, now I've got permission to talk about your performance. Now what the idea we're talking about is about performance.
And we're on the same page.
Same page.
We've both agreed to it. Yeah,
It's a contract.
Ooh.
Right. So in sales, they call that an upfront contract.
Huh.
Which is fun. In fact, it becomes such an important piece of them as a coach and communicating.
Well, I was chatting to Mike Cron the other day, and he said that he uses this, and he goes, "Do you want me to be brutally honest?"
Here's your frame.
And he frames it, and of course the answer is nearly
Yes.
always yes.
Yeah.
And then he can say anything he wants.
Yep.
And he can be as mean-spirited as he would want. Not that he is,
Yeah.
but it's opening that door, isn't it?
He's brutal as a perspective.
Yeah.
So you choose how he facilitates that.
That's a cool little thing. Create a contract and get them to sign.
Yeah. That's for an upfront contract.
Upfront contract.
Yeah. That's sales spin.
But that's a good one for coaches, right?
Yeah. Great upfront contract.
Because you can, you can even say things like, I'm just going off the top of my head here, but like, hey boys, prepared to work hard today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, this is what we're doing.
Rather than saying that frame there, Ben, it's a rhetorical question.
Oh,
so
is there a difference on that?
Yeah, it's an open and closed question, right? So, like, there's a nuance between how you work with the individual and how you work with the group.
Oh yeah, what's the different
types of frame? Right? So, it's how you get your confirmation. So today, team, we're going to go out and we're going to work hard because of these reasons. Talk to your values, whatever. If you have any problem with that, come and see us, right? But from a show of hands or from the silence is a firm yes. Okay. No, it's chunks. They've agreed to the frame. Right. So it's a skill you got to practice. But once you have it, it is such a powerful tool to steer your communication the way you want it to go.
Gee, I love that. It's a nice little thing to start practicing, right? Start framing up everything you're doing.
Yeah, well, the meetings you have in small groups, it's coaching group. Okay, this is the purpose of the meeting. This is what we're going to talk about. The outcome is we want this. Is that okay for everyone? Yep, great. Now you've got permission to talk specifically about certain subjects.
So that's the power you were talking about.
Yeah,
purpose.
It's a different way to frame.
Yeah. So here's the purpose. This is what we're going to talk about. The outcome we want to get to that. We all aboard on this?
Yeah. It's a good way to present too. Like when you're presenting a group, you're listening. This is what we're doing. This is the agenda. This is the outcome. You framed your meeting clearly. It's shared understanding of what you're going to talk about.
Gee, I think that's a powerful one. I think that's in so many contexts. Like you can, if we're talking just exclusively rugby, it's the meetings, it's the feedback sessions, it's the actual on-field stuff.
Yeah.
It's the after-match reviews.
So many times you walked into a review and the coach is just gone straight into the review.
Yes. Yeah. How should it? What's a better way of doing that?
Right. How I would talk to why are we training, or why are we playing? What's the meaning behind what the goals were of playing? Okay, this is what we try to achieve from a tactical perspective. These are the goals. What we're going to do today is talk about how we fared against those goals. Right? You okay with that? Yeah, cool. So all of a sudden you have permission to talk about how you trained and played.
That is in itself too a really good one, because a lot of teams actually have those goals, or most teams would. You'd say we want to dominate the breakdown today, and we want to get 75% of the breakdowns in our favour, something like that. then that's what you review, right, rather than anything else.
And like I've also been in those meetings where like the coach walks in angry, or there's a spray.
Mm.
Well, I'll get your perspective with, like in Australia, it's giving the players a spray. What are your thoughts on a spray then?
I'm not a massive fan on a spray because at certain times, if it's about effort and then maybe in the time,
Yeah.
you can probably critique that one with a spray if it warrants it. But on the whole, I wouldn't present spray on results or any outcomes like that, because that's
with a halftime spray.
Sometimes it actually works. And I don't know. I don't particularly like delivering, but I do them rarely. But when I have done them, maybe it's because they're done rarely. They seem to intuitively do something, and you just, maybe it's the passion piece. Maybe it's because they don't see it all the time. They're like, oh, he must be serious on this one. But when it's done all the time, it's like it feels like it's just white noise, and it makes no difference.
Yeah, you can think, who does it serve? Who does the spray serve?
Well, I guess
that's delivering it, how they feel.
I guess it's the intention. I reckon it's the intention behind it. If the intention of the spray is to elicit a response which feels like it's needed, and that's considered the way to do it, I would say that's for the team. Yeah. If it's not intentional, where it's just I'm frustrated, rant, then that's for you, the coach.
Yeah. Like you talked about how you show up. Well, like understanding. The more you understand yourself as a coach, the more you understand what your belief structures are, what your values are. Like look at them, interrogate, where have they come from? Because a lot of who we are, our personality, is driven from our adolescence. So what we believe in comes from parents. What we believe in, we're part of the environment we've been subject to. Sometimes, a lot of the time, I get to coaching is these beliefs and values have been running us without us knowing what.
Yeah.
Why am I angry at this? Why am I upset? I like to think of it that way. And you're right, the intention behind the spray. As a coach, understanding why you're feeling these emotions at that time. Why am I getting angry at this in this? Because you see some coaches who show zero emotion. Kind of respect that.
I like that too.
Same, I used to be on the sideline and absolutely.
I've been around a few too myself.
And throwing water bottles.
Yes. Now, mate, I've got. We're actually. I'd like to ask you this question, mate. This is our last question for today. Is what's one thing you believe around this stuff that we're talking about coaches and how they can get better, that you believe in, that you reckon contemporaries would disagree with?
I do believe that it's your responsibility as the coach. Sports psychologists have a job. I've been part of teams with some amazing sports psychologists, Kate Hayes, Peter Kruger, and been involved in teams with amazing. But I think controversially, I think it's the role of the coach to be able to deliver some of these messages and work intimately with these players. I think palming off is the wrong word. Palming off that responsibility. That's my contribution. I think, like, to deal with like trauma and difficult moments with the players in the team, when you're talking about performance, I think that's a bit led by people all the time.
It's funny. I heard someone say the other day too around the culture, where the teams was getting a culture expert in to come and deliver that to a team, and outsourcing that side of things. Where it's similar to what you said. That falls squarely on the head coach's role. Like that's part of the role. If he or she can't deliver that, then you've got to be looking to grow that side of your game, because that's important. You have to be outsourcing that side of things, right?
I agree. I think that's also a nature of understanding and the way A lot of what we're talking about now, no one talked about 10 years ago.
No
one talked about it. And I wish they had. Or I wish I had access to this. I wish I had access to these types of conversations and the ones I've had the past 5-6 years, 20 years ago.
It's enlightening, isn't it? It's a game changer in life.
Well, it gives me meaning. Like what drives what you do gives me meaning, the ability to be able to, one, work within the county with it is amazing. Help people there, also facilitate and help teach with the young coaches and coaches involved from the sport. Like being able to help them where I didn't have it. Yeah.
John Dams, what an absolute pleasure to have you in person on the Coaching Culture podcast. If I may, I'd like to just wrap up with my 3 big takeaways from this awesome conversation, mate. And having had many of these conversations, we could go long into the night, I reckon. We'll have a few beers later on tonight and probably go further into that sort of thing. But here they are, mate. Number 1 is, you said at the start, how important the fundamentals of rapport are when you are a coach or a leader in any situation. And little tips you said is being able to match language and match values. And without rapport, you get a real distinct lack of flow of communication. And I love that kind of concept too, that like on a date, you're sort of searching for little connection points around how to make that date go better. And you do those things, and you actually find it will go better. And it certainly equates to coaching as well. Number 2, you said feelings are a flag. And I think that is an awesome little concept, never to shy away from them, because they're flagging something in you which you need to address. Which is important, right? And important, and nothing to get down on.
Yeah.
And you mentioned one fantastic way to separate out some of your internal feelings is journaling. Because journaling makes things objective rather than subjective. And you talked about breaking it down from the first person to the second person to the third person. And then once you're in that space, you're getting it out of your head and you're viewing it from a very different standpoint, which I think is and perspective, which is fantastic. And number 3 is just this concept around frame everything. Frame things to hold powerful meaning. And we briefly touched on the way good coaches frame up their words to make it stick in people's minds. And you said this: purpose, agenda, outcome, or POW. You get those things in, you set the purpose, you set the agenda and the outcome, and then you get an upfront contract. Do you want to hear it? Do you buy into this? Is my feedback welcome here? And as soon as someone says yes, you're in.
You've got permission.
You've got permission. Contract signed, and away you go. And I just think that's a lovely little thing just to remember, an important one for coaches to practice that. Practice your framing, because it's such a valuable tool to have. John Dams, what a pleasure to have you on the Coaching Culture podcast today.
What a pleasure. Thanks, Miss.